Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am PANCZASU introducing Endless Legend. That's right, the NDA just wore off, so at the time you're seeing this videocast I'm actually allowed to post anything I please about this very game. Also, since we are getting relatively close to the release date of Endless Legend, and maybe it has already been released by the time you're watching this videocast, you can also consider this video to be a tutorial of sorts, since I'll explain all the basic features of this game, so that you have a little bit of an easier time when you buy this game, if you buy this game to be more precise. Now, first things first, a big warning, it is an alpha product. Right now what you're seeing is in fact something even before that, because I'm playing a closed version that I have access to as a playtester for Endless Legend. It's something I've been doing for the past few months, just playtesting this game and having a lot of fun while doing it. So yeah, what you're seeing is alpha, everything is subject to change, and even once this game is released on Steam, it will be on early access, meaning that there will be bugs and that there will be features missing or features that are going to be changed completely. You have to be aware of that. If you are going to want to buy this game after watching this videocast or before, then remember, you're buying an alpha product, treat it as such. Developers will gladly hear your opinions about this game as well as suggestions and whatnot if you do decide to buy it, but you cannot have any serious expectations. If you want to be on the safe side, I suggest you do not buy this game yet and wait for the full release. Now, you may be asking, Pancake, what is this game? Well, first of all, get out of the rock you're hiding in. And secondly, Endless Legend is a 4X. A sort of fantasy 4X to be more precise. If I have to compare it to something, and I hate myself for doing this, but it will be the most obvious comparison that many people would make anyway, people are going to compare Endless Legend to Civilization 5. Now, first things first, it is not a very good idea to compare the two games because they are very different, but the core mechanics are the same. If you don't know what a 4X is, but you know what Civ 5 is, Civ 5 is a 4X, so you can expect similar things in Endless Legend. There is hex grid, there is city building, and there are all of the 4Xs, which are expand, exploit, exterminate, and the other X that I always forget. So there is that. Now that you know what this game is, let's show you the features of it and start my little tutorial thingy. Now, assuming you do buy this game, obviously you should start by going into options menu and customize it to your full extent. Now, for an alpha game, it is a very impressive options menu and it will be improved in the future as well. But honestly, it's not something that most people expect when they buy an early alpha product, or at least what they should expect. Right now, this is very nice. I encourage you especially to spend some time in notifications and toggle some of them on or off, so that they only display pop-ups that you consider important. It's a nice idea. Now, once you start the game, you will not be able to load anything because you have no save files, so you need to start a new game. So yeah, a lot of options are going to await you right here. Let's go through them. First of all, once the game is released, at start it will only give you access to 4 factions. The first one being the Wild Walkers, the second being Broken Lords, the third one being the Voters, and the last one being Necrophages, and those guys are honestly my personal favorite. Now, this is going to be a basic tutorial. I will not go very in-depth into everything, because otherwise this videocast would be way too long. Instead, I'll only talk briefly about each faction. So, Wild Walkers are the builders. If you want something done, they'll do it. Whenever you need a building or a unit, they'll make it faster than anybody else. And that's pretty much the general idea behind this faction in a nutshell. Obviously, it's way more complex than that, but as I said, we do not have time to talk about the complexity of this game right now in this videocast. The second faction are the Broken Lords. Very popular faction amongst many people, including other playtesters and myself. I really love the playstyle, I have to admit, it's something unique. Those guys do not use food, which is one of the resources that is present in pretty much every 4X game ever. Now, they do not use food to grow the population, they instead use dust, which is a form of currency in this game, which also fuels your magic and whatnot. It's a deep lore to it that I'm not going to cover. Either way, Broken Lords focus entirely on dust, and this is the greatest source of their strength, as well as a potential weakness, because without dust they are pretty much screwed. Next faction are the Voters. Those guys are kinda like science freaks, so they'll probably get new technologies and whatnot faster than other factions, and they'll be able to expand into space and leave Auriga, which is the planet we are going to play on, faster than anybody else. But other than that, I don't know. Personally, I'm not a big fan of voters. But it's not to say they are not a cool race, it's just not the kind of race that I personally like to play as. Still, they really focus on science discoveries and have some pretty good units as well, but other than that, they have nothing special going for them, in my opinion. Some people would disagree. And then last by no means least, necrophages. Those guys are absolutely amazing. They are also kind of interesting because they have a reduced income of food based on the towns they're walking. I'll explain that in a minute. But at the same time, their cities also have an increased income of food depending on various, you know, things. Like for example, the necrophages heroes can increase the food production of a city. The necrophages also can stockpile enemy corpses and use them as food, which is a really cool and neat mechanic that I would love to introduce to you. Also, necrophages have some very interesting units, and out of the 4 factions that are available start, they are the only guys that have access to flying units, which are very important. Right now they're kind of underpowered when they're attacked by archers, but this will change. Keep in mind, balance, one of the many things that will definitely be changed as the game is being developed. So those are the 4 factions. Now, right now there's no multiplayer, and there will be no multiplayer during the early alpha of this game that you may buy access into once it reaches Steam. So do not expect any multiplayer. There will be AI, however, which is fairly competent. Nothing amazing as of yet, but it gets the job done. It will obviously be also improved. You can select a number of empires between 2 to 6. You can't go to 8 right now for the purposes of this early access, but later down the line you will actually be able to set the amount of players to 8, but that's in the future. Right now it's disabled. Same goes for what size. You can usually select from tiny to huge, but right now some of the options are disabled because, again, early alpha and some of the features are not necessary yet. World shape is also obviously going to have way more options. Right now the navy is not implemented in this game at all, so there's no possibility of crossing oceans in any way, so you will only be able to play on a Pangaea settings or settings with no oceans whatsoever. Anything else is simply not available for you right now because you wouldn't have any way of reaching other continents. Temperature is implemented right now. There's not much to it, it just changes the temperature. Region size is a very important thing. There are regions in this game, I'll explain it once we get into it, but my personal recommendation is to go for small, because the game feels more natural this way, and again, this is something I need to explain once we get into the game itself. You can also go into advanced settings, which I encourage you to do, because you can change one of the most visually appealing settings in my eyes, which is geometry. It's on default by default, which is kind of to be expected, and I really like it to be chaotic, because I think it makes the world look more natural, more like something that you could kind of see in real life, although not really. Either way, the game still looks amazing, so you know what I mean by that. World wrap is very simple. If you turn that to no, you're just going to play on a map like from a normal strategy game like StarCraft or something. If you turn this to yes, then the game will play like every other fork. So once you go to the right, continuously will eventually appear on the left. Very simple. See, this is random, and right now it has to stay as random. And terrain, right now there are not too many features that you can mess around with in world generator, but you can change the terrain average mountainousness. Wow, that was a nice way of saying this. Of course, all those features will have more features in them, and they will be better implemented. But again, keep in mind, alpha is alpha. So, for the purpose of this demonstration, I'll start a game in a minute, and because creating a new game takes a minute, I'll pause the recording and see you in a moment as soon as the game starts. Alright, welcome to Auriga, a beautiful planet that you are going to settle on and wipe out the civilization and either save the planet from being destroyed or venture out into space and win by science victory, which is an option. This game is beautiful, as you are probably seeing right now. And that's not everything. You're going to see what happens to the map as we discover it, but this will be amazing, I tell you. When I saw it for the first time, I couldn't believe how nice it looks. So anyway, this is what you see once you load into the game. One little good dude, which is your hero with a small army under his command, with a settler. This settler can settle a city, obviously, kinda like Civ 5. Sorry, I had to compare it. And yeah, that's about it, but you might be horribly lost and confused right now, so let's talk a bit about the main menu, or rather the menu, not main menu. So first of things first, let's go into this upper left side of the screen. What you can see right here is a handful of icons that you can click to gain access to different sub-menus that will be vitally important for you. You also see your 2 Empire resources that are very important. First thing is dust. As I said, dust is your currency. You use this to buy things out, you use this to power some abilities, and you generally use it to various ways. And if you are playing as Broken Lords, you also use this to get more population in your cities. This is influence. It used to be called prestige. It is used for various effects, but most importantly it is used to issue diplomacy, to give you access to more diplomacy options, because you cannot conduct diplomacy without any influence, which is a very interesting way of doing things, and it is also making the diplomacy of this game one of the key strengths of Endless Legend, amongst many other strengths. This is obviously going to display what you're researching right now once you do start researching something, and this is going to be a place where you have all your resources, strategic resources that is displayed, so we can see at a glance what you have and what you do not have. Alright, so first things first, let's go into the Empire screen. This screen displays all the basic information about your Empire. So right now we cannot see too much because we just started the game. We are yet to create our first city, so Empire probable value is at 0 because nobody is living in our Empire just yet. Recycling counter is something unique to the necrophages. It is the amount of corpses you have, and once you reach the top of the counter you get a stockpile of food, which I'll cover at a later moment. You obviously have a list of all your faction traits over here, and also a cool icon of your leader and whatnot. Strategic resources and luxury resources are listed in those icons, or rather spaces, and Empire bonuses are listed on the right. It will be wise for you to look at them every now and again, because they will tell you why your economy is doing great or why it is suffering right now. I'm not going to talk too much about what every one of them mean, but you can probably tell. Assimilate the manufacturers. Yeah, I will need to talk about this. Right now I cannot. Also there's Empire Plan. Empire Plan is something I will need to cover after a while, once it is actually unlocked, but it is something very important that defines the way you want your empire to run. So stay tuned until I show you what this means. Next screen is going to be the city list screen, which is right now empty because I have no cities. Then we've got the research screen, which gives you a view of all the research you can acquire, and all the research that you want to be working on. The game consists of 6 eras. Each era has a different amount of text, obviously, and right now, since it is early alpha, 5th and 6th era are blocked. You cannot reach them, and there's no tech in them anyway, so don't even think about going for them. It will be obviously added later down as the game keeps being developed. Now, the cool thing about the research screen is that as you research new things, you are not restricted as to what you want to research. For example, let's say that I want to research weapons made out of titanium and glass steel, which are strategic resources of this game. You can do that, and then you can research something else and something else. Or you can just ignore all this completely and instead research something like this, this and this. So you're not limited as to what you want to research at all, as long as you are in the era that the technology is in. So if you want to focus on something early on, you can focus on that very, very easily. Now, the way you reach the next era is by gaining the required amount of techs. So for example, for the 2 era, as you can see, I already have 2 techs unlocked, because necrophages start with 2 unlocked techs. And then you need to unlock a certain amount of 10 extra techs. I mean 8, because I already have 2 unlocked, in order to progress to the 2nd era. And then I'll be able to research, again, anything I please out of this list. Or just go back into things from 1st era and also research them whenever I please. So while it is almost impossible, or just flat out impossible, for you to grab every tech, or at least it's impractical, so you need to keep choosing which tech you want to go for instead of just going for everything. But you're not restricted as to what particular tech you want to get. If you want to focus on economy, fine. If you want to focus on military, fine. Nothing is restricting you in that regard aside from the eras. Now, next screen is going to be a quest screen. We're going to start getting quests after we settle our city and play for more than 110, so let's wait for it to actually be filled up. Quests are in this game, however, and they are very cool. There's plenty of them, and they are very different as well, so we will need to talk about. Next is the military screen, which is going to be a very important screen as well, because you have access to several features in here. First of all, you have a list of all your armies that you control, so you can access them, see what units are in every army, retrofit them if you want to, and if you can rename those armies, or disband them, and do various other things. On the right side of the screen we have the unit designer. Here you can create your own units. Now, there are a few templates that you start with, like for example Settler, Forager and Next Drone. Obviously every faction has different units except for the Settler, which is shared among factions. But let's say that I want something more specialized than just a basic Forager. In order to do that, I just have to go into the edit screen, and then I can change its equipment. For example, I maybe wanted to have a two-handed weapon, no problem. It now has a two-handed weapon, but it has obviously no shield. Maybe I wanted to have a helmet, no problem. It will now have a helmet. As you can see, it right now doesn't really reflect on the looks of the unit, but in the future it will, since as you can see already the weapon does reflect on the look of the unit. So this is something that will change. Right now my options are very limited because I just started the game, but as I discover more technologies I can have access to, how they called? Accessories, that's the word I was looking for, as well as pick various different types of weapons that do different things. For example, I could equip my infantry unit with a polearm, which would make it very efficient against cavalry, but much weaker against anything else. So that's basically how you can specialize units. So the way you have to look at this is that a template of a unit is only its physical appearance. So for example, this unit will also always look like that and then have some extra equipment attached to it. And also the basic type of unit. In this game there are... Yes, I'm sure I want to exit. In this game there are 5 different types of units. The first is the infantry unit, which is especially effective at fighting ranged units, but is very ineffective at fighting cavalry. The next unit is a ranged unit. I didn't have access to it right now, but ranged units are very efficient at taking out flyers. Next type of unit is a flyer, which is very good at destroying cavalry, and then we've got cavalry, which as I said is very good at destroying infantry. There's also a special type of unit, which is just called special if I remember correctly, which is basically a caster, a support unit that can increase your defensive or offensive capabilities in different ways. For example, for necrophages, when we go back into the research screen, you can see that at the second era we can unlock the proliferator, or how you're supposed to pronounce it, which is a very powerful unit which can resurrect enemy dead units and turn them to fight on your side, which is a very, very nifty feature and a useful one as well. Many factions have support units, and those supports can cast different spells or just support their allies in different ways. So there is that, there's the military screen. Also part of the military screen is the academy screen, where you can browse through all of your heroes. Heroes are very important in this game, and because they not only can either increase the potential of your units on the battlefield, but they can also make your cities grow to be much more powerful than they normally would. When we inspect a hero, you can see that, first of all, we can change its equipment just like we can change the equipment of any other unit. Except for a hero, you can also pick equipment that can benefit him when he's a governor inside of city. Obviously, right now we just started the game, I do not have access to this equipment, but there is such equipment in this game, trust me. Now, secondly, while other units, in order to equip new equipment, need to have it forged, so it costs industry to make this equipment. However, this little guy, if you want to add a helmet to him and some other stuff, we'll need to spend dust to do so. So there is that. As you can see, if I want to equip him with an axe, I'll have to spend 6.5 dust. But heroes not only have equipment, they also have skill tree. Skill trees are different for each hero. For example, first of all, a hero from each race has a different right side of the tree. So for example, as a necrophage, I have access to things like necrotic agriculture, which gives me extra food production in a city. If I were, for example, a Wild Walkers hero, I'd have access to something that would give me more industry for every forest tile nearby, and things like that. The middle area, from what I can tell, is always the same. It always have the same things, which are pretty much always good. but they do not allow you to maybe specialize as much as you will want to. And then the left side of their hero, it depends from what your hero is. For example, this guy is an infantryman, and he likes to beat stuff up. He has access to several techniques that benefit him as a result, for example, increasing the defense, and so on and so forth, because he will need it as a defender. Now, those skills obviously turn this hero into a very good war leader or a very good governor. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. Next screen is a diplomacy screen, which right now is absolutely empty because I'm yet to meet any other faction. And I'll show you this screen in a moment once we can find some more factions. And the last screen, again, I cannot show it because it's actually not unlocked yet. It is a marketplace. You need to unlock it via tech. And on this marketplace you can hire heroes, hire mercenaries, or just buy out resources that you do not have access to and you want to gain access to, which is very, very important, as you'll find out as you play this game. Now, mercenaries come in different forms. You can either hire just normal mercenaries, or if you do something that I can do right now, I can disband this unit. If I do, this unit will appear at the mercenaries marketplace, and other healers will be able to buy it. So disbanding unit is always a risk in this game, because you may give your enemy access to a unit that normally he would never be able to get. So it's something you have to bear in mind. Sometimes it is not a very good idea to disband units. Now, however, let us actually do some... I need to settle a city very badly so I can talk about some other features of the UI. But before we do that, let's talk about the lower right side of the screen. This button right here will select you to the next idle army. This army needs orders and you need to do something. This button will force your armies to continue the orders that you issued them on the previous turns. This right here is the counter. As you can see, it shows 6 up to 22. This means that in 6 up to 22 turns, the dark season will start. Dark season is very important in this game, but I'll talk about this later. You need to keep looking at this counter, because the closer it gets to the dark season, the more scared you should be. Or happy if you are an evil faction that can deal with dark season. It depends, obviously. Now, on the bottom side of this wheel, we've got a list of all the factions in this game. Right now they have question marks because we are yet to discover those factions, but as we find out what they are, those question marks will be replaced by their icons. Now, the next thing is this little button, which shows the FTSE production, of each individual terrain tile, which I'll leave on for the time being, but since now I really need to create a city, I'll do just that. So first things first, what you always do at the start of Endless Legend is you select an army and you've got a bunch of scouts given at the start. So let's use the first forager, let's use the first forager, make a new army with him. As you can see, units can walk on their own very easily. And with this guy, I'm going to just scout the area around and look for a suitable place to settle somewhere nearby. I basically want to see what fits production I can find nearby, because for necrophages it is a good idea to find a place that is filled with everything except food, because food you'll probably not be able to use anyway, since necrophages have a decreased production of food, and in order to make food they need to actually gather corpses, honestly. So there is that. Okay, I have discovered a bit of land, and I can now choose where to settle. When you settle, you need to consider the fits, but since you don't know what fits is, because I didn't explain it yet, I'll just settle in the place that I would consider to be the absolute best, and that being placed right over here. So let me just move into position, and right now the city has been founded. Now there is, again, that's alpha, there's right now a UI back. You're not supposed to be seeing this city is not supposed to be transparent. We'll deal with that in a second. Actually, we'll deal with that right now, stay tuned. Okay, as you can see, reloading the game fixed this graphical issue. I'm pretty certain that you will not even see this once the game is published on Steam, but again, keep in mind, alpha is alpha, things like that do happen, so be aware of this fact. Now, with a city founded, we can actually go ahead and visit it, and as you can see, we've got a bunch of new windows open that just opened up. First of all, the city info is the thing I'm going to focus on first, because it shows you all the FTSE. So FTSE stands for Food, Industry, Science, Dust, Influence. In short, FTSE. Food is the resource that you need in order to grow a bigger population in the city. the more food you get, the faster you gain milk population. As you can see with the current amount of food production I have of 8, I'll grow to a second population, second worker in 3 turns, which is very, very important for the growth of your cities. With the workers that you have available, you can swap them around and focus on production of different things. For example, I can make my worker stop working on the food, and as a result I am gaining barely any food, and my next worker will appear in 11 turns instead of 3. However, by manipulating this worker, I can, for example, increase my dust gain quite considerably, so now I gain 20 dust per turn instead of a mere 15. And right now in early game it is obviously a bad idea to gain food. Industry is the thing you use to make things in your city. So the more industry you have, the faster you can make new units or new structures. Science is kinda obvious. It gives you the ability to research new tech, and the more science you gain, the faster you can research more tech. Dust, as I said, is currency. You can speed the production of different units, you can hire mercenaries, you can trade for things with other players. All in all, it's a currency, as simple as that. And influence, as I explained before, is something that you use to engage in diplomacy, as well as set up your empire plan, which I'll talk about again in the future. You can also see your current expenses when you click on this window and see what is costing you any money and see if you want to destroy it or not. Right here you can see the name of the city, which you can obviously rename at will. And this is the minor faction that is in your region. Minor factions are something that I'll talk in a moment. Right now this icon tells you that this minor faction is hostile, so in some time there will be enemy neutral units that will spawn from this minor faction and they will attack you. So if you see this icon, it's usually bad. You need to deal with that. Now, on the lower side of the screen, you can choose what you want to produce. For example, you may want to create the Founders Memorial. We can only make one of those in your entire empire, but it's usually a fairly worthwhile investment because it's relatively cheap, but it gives you a fairly decent bonus to everything. So it makes one of your cities more powerful than other. It's nothing in late game, but in early game it's fairly crucial. You can also do other things. You can salt the earth, which destroys your city. I discourage you from doing that with your first city. You will lose the game. That's not a very good idea. And the other option is to go for barrel streets. It's a unique type of structure. It's not like every other structure that you can make in the Forks. For example, if I make Founders Memorial, it will exist, it will be on this list, but it will not appear anywhere on the map. It will just provide its bonus eye. Instead, barrel street you actually make adjacent to your city, and you gain benefits from it, which I'm going to explain right now, in fact. So how do your cities generate fits? First of all, you need to remember that your citizens can be happy or unhappy. There are various reasons why they could be happy or unhappy, but generally the happier they are, the more resources they produce. For example, right now my people are happy, and as a result I gain extra food and industry. Now, the amount of the other ways that influence your food industry, science, dust, and influence production are the towns that you have your city settled on. So it's a very simple formula. As you can see, it's all explained right here. First of all, you have a certain amount of production that you can generate per every worker assigned to a city. So as you can see right now, this worker is producing 4 food because this is the amount of food that you can get from one worker. That's the basic bonus. You can increase it, however, with more improvements. Then you've got city tiles bonus eye. You do not need workers to gain those bonuses. Those bonuses are given to you depending on what terrain you settled on. As you can see right now, I'm surrounded by tiles that give me in total 8 science, which is displayed here, 4 industry, 3 food, 9 dust, and 1 prestige. I mean influence, not prestige. All of this is what I gain from settling next to those tiles that you are seeing right about now. Then we've got some additional modifiers that are various other things. And then there is the total amount of seed that you are producing in your particular city. So it's all so those are all things that you need to keep an eye out on. Now, the terrain types. There are plenty of terrain types in this game, and every gives you a different type of bonus. For example, as you can see, Snowfield, on default it gives you 2 food. I'm a necromorph? Not a necromorph. Wait, what am I? Necrophage, there we go. Sorry, I got confused with that space. I'm a necrophage, so as a necrophage I have decreased food production, but usually snowfield give you 2 food. And then again we've got rocky field, which gives you 2 industry and 1 science, and so on and so forth. Forests are very important because some heroes and Wild Walkers faction gain extra bonuses from settling near the forests. Rivers also are very important. Usually in early game they are fairly useless, but as you unlock more techs, those rivers will become more powerful. They also, by default, as I said, by default they do not enhance the fits production of a tile, but with tech they will. Now on the map, as you can see, there are certain additional features. First of all, we've got the anomalies. There are only positive anomalies in this game, just like there were in Endless Space, but in Endless Space there were also negative anomalies. In this game they are only positive. As you can see, each anomaly has different lore associated with it, and it gives you extra bonus fits on the particular town that this anomaly is present on. For example, Earthspan, as you can see, gives me additional science and dust and happiness on this particular town. So if I settle next to it, I'll gain those very bonuses, in addition to the bonuses I gain from the towns themselves. As you can see, I decided to settle on in this area because I'm right next to 3 different anomalies. It is usually a very good idea to settle next to anomalies, but also do not overestimate the power. Sometimes it's better to settle in a spot with very nice normal terrain other than going for a spot with bad terrain and just 1 anomaly. So you need to balance out your options. But right now, starting with this start is absolutely amazing, I can tell you right now, and I'll gladly continue playing this game after I finish this video. Now, the other things that you can see on the map are the strategic resources. As you can see right now, this for example is a titanium deposit, which you can place an extractor on. Extractors are structures that work similarly to borrow streets. You settle them on a map, and you can only make them on the top of a strategic resource deposit. Once you do, those extractors will give you 1 of this particular resource per turn. I'll talk about this later when I load a save file from a few turns forward. Other than that, there are also luxury resources that you can also mine in the same way as you can mine strategic resources. There are also places where you can set up observation towers or watchtowers, but they are not unlocked yet because of my lack of technology. Again, stay tuned, I'll explain that in a moment. Now, there are also 2 other types of features that you can see on the terrain. First are the ruins. Ruins are very important. Once you explore them, you can gain various different benefits. For example, you can find gold inside of them, or you can gain a quest by visiting those ruins. And last but by no means least is a minor faction dwelling. So for example, right now this place is a Sertan village. Those are arachnids. They are fairly scary. And I think I'll just end my turn right now. Oh wait, I need to pick up research first, which is very, very important. So let me just... It doesn't really matter, but what I do personally most of the time is the rush for search party, because it increases the odds of finding useful stuff in ruins. Anyway, let's end this turn. Let it process. And I'll talk about it in a second, don't worry. So now, if I go into the Sertan village, I cannot actually attack it, but I do not really want to do that. Instead, where was this main menu? I think I cannot visit it right now because I first need to control a minor faction, unfortunately. Let's just try and discover a new minor faction if at all possible. Oh, there we go. Very nice, so there's a new minor faction. So once you discover minor factions, you get those little pop-ups, and they show you what a minor faction is and what it does. So this particular minor faction are Delvers. They have a unique model of judges, they are their infantry units. And this is what those guys are going to start spawning in a while. Those guys... Oh, I minimized this window for crying out loud. Whatever. So those guys are going to start spawning those particular units. Also, each particular faction has some kind of bonus associated with it, but I'll talk about it again later. Don't worry, I will talk about all of those things. Right now what you need to know, however, is what kind of unit is spawned by each particular dwelling, because those units will attack you unless you either ally yourself with the minor faction or you wipe it out of the face of the earth, which you can also do. Now, final thing is the terrain shape, or to be more exact, the height of terrain. In this game, unlike in other 4-axes, or at least most other 4-axes, terrain height actually matters. For example, in combat, when you are on higher ground, you have bonus against units that are on lower ground. Also, there are cliffs in this game, and cliffs, as you might imagine, you cannot walk through unless you have... no, you simply cannot walk through. So that's about it. And now, what I will do is I'll pause the recording, I'll play for a while by myself, and then I'll show you the game once it is a little bit more developed. Actually, just before I do that, I forgot, I didn't show you actually the quests. So first of all, there are the main quests, and also the quests that each faction is given as at the start of 10.2. And they all have lore to them. They have different types of summaries, and you have different rewards for completing them. Basically, objectives are something that you do not necessarily have to do, but you should do them. Faction quests are the most important ones, of course, and if you complete all faction quests, you win the game. As, of course, assuming nobody else did it before you. Every faction have different sets of faction quests associated with them, and they are all very different as a direct result. For example, as a Necrophagus, I have to destroy a minor faction village, and then also search for a certain ruin that is going to be highlighted on my map. As a reward, I'll gain 20 Quicksilver, which is a resource. As you can see, it is a luxury. And then I'll have another chapter in my main quest storyline unlocked, which is very important. This is, as I said, how you one of the ways you can win the game. In a while, I'll also show you a various amount of other quests, but right now I don't have access to them. Something else I also forgot to mention is a very big deal. Let's see what happens when I zoom out the map. This is what happens. So once you zoom out the map, you can see the strategic view per se. It is kind of like a mini-map of sorts. As you can see, there are different regions in this game. Each region has its name that you can see once you zoom out. And the color of the region tells you under whose influence it is. For example, this region is occupied by me because I have a city in this region, and as a result, this region is rightfully mine. And yeah, that's fairly important. It's basically like those are my borders right here. And those regions have no colors, so they are neutral. So there's that. There are also other icons that represent other resources on the map, or trees and whatnot, so you can tell where everything is at a glance. You can also manipulate your cities from within that view, which can be fairly useful once you zoom out further. If you zoom out too far, then you will not be able to manipulate your cities anymore, but still, once you zoom that far, you basically just want to see what is where, I assume. So there's that. This view is actually pretty neat. And also the regions is something I didn't mention, which is very important because there can only be ever one city in every particular region. Which means that if you beat somebody to your region and settle a city over there, nobody else can settle a city unless they take over your city and destroy it or just occupy it. So this is how it works. I can settle a new city in this region, but I cannot settle a new city in this region. Also, if an enemy wants to walk through my region, they have to declare... well, it depends. If we have open borders or not, then they can walk through or not. Usually at the start of the game you are in Cold War, so everybody can walk through everybody's borders. But if somebody was to attack my units within my borders, this would be an act of war. Which, again, diplomacy, I'll talk in a while. So now we can stay tuned, and I'll show you more features. Alright, as you can see, my empire is now way more powerful than ever before. And I can show you all the remaining features that I was unable to discuss until this point, but now more things are locked and I can freely talk about them. So first things first, on this very turn I researched my era number 2. It's called the Research Era. Every age has its different name and it's focused around a different idea. Research Era, while it sounds peaceful, it is actually focusing quite heavily on military tech as well as on technologies that could allow you to survive the winter, which is a real threat in this game. Winter is also known as the Dark Times, by the way. So as you can see, new era, in this case the Age of Glory, gives me access to better basic weapons that everybody has access to once they reach the era, of course. Marines are better in general. I can now see watchtowers on the map and I can improve them as well. And that's fairly important, and I can also go for Empire level 2 plan, which is also fairly important. What are the watchtowers? Well, those are those things. You can make watchtowers on top of those foundations, and they give you several benefits that I will not bother to discuss in this videocast, but because it is ridiculously long already. So, first things first, out of the things that I wanted to present to you, but I couldn't. One of those where I kind of discussed the quests, I guess, but only on a very limited extent. As you can see, I have 2 currently ongoing side quests. One of them is to search some kind of ruin with a strong army, which probably indicates that I'll have to fight somebody. That's usually how it works. And a different side quest requires me to gather enough wine. Or rather, not gather enough wine, but actually have 2 wine extractors. That's a big difference actually in this game. So there is that. As you can see, those are just 3 side quests, 2 side quests you can see right now, but there's a lot of variety in those, trust me. So this is one of the game's strong points, definitely. I now have also unlocked the market. Right now, I cannot actually buy anything aside from the heroes. I can hire heroes. Exclusive heroes are only visible to you, but in 14 turns, at least for me it is 14 turns, they will become available for everybody. Now those 3 other heroes are heroes that used to be exclusive but now are publicly available. As you can see, they are ridiculously expensive, so we're not going to buy one. You can also buy unit stockpiles, luxuries and strategic resources once you get the tech that allows you to do so. The prices of the marketplace change depending on who wants to buy something and who wants to sell something. So if everybody wants to buy a specific type of luxury, for example, at once, then the price goes up. And if somebody wants to sell this luxury, the price goes down. Fairly simple. And kind of like real life, honestly. So it shouldn't be too confusing to you. Now, resources are not entirely like in Endless Space, or even Civ 5, or even other 4Xs. They're kind of like between Endless Space and Civ 5. What do I mean by that? Well, right now I've got a titanium extractor, right? It is a mine that provides me 1 unit of titanium every turn. This unit of titanium I can use to improve my units. For example, if I go to my Necrodrone, I can actually equip it with a new piece of, how it's called, accessory, which I unlocked before, of course. So, for example, this one gives me an improved critical chance. Or damage, I'm not too sure, actually. Let's see, critical... Actually, I think it's both damage, critical damage and critical chance. But anyway, I can now make my units wear those fancy little rings. I have no idea what they wear them on, but it's not very important. And every time I want to make a unit now, it is going to cost me 2 titanium that I'll never ever get back. But I also have a limitless supply of it over here on this mine. So if I end my turn, which I shouldn't do, but let's do it for entertainment purposes. Oh wait, I should pick a tech. Let's go for anything. So if I end my turn, as you can see right now, I have 4 titanium, because it was yet another turn when my mine was operating and giving me additional resource. So this is the same for luxury mines as well, which, as you can see, I can create quite easy. This, for example, right here is an emeralds deposit. I know what they are, I know how to harvest them, so all I need to do in order to start the game, gathering them, is do this. Luxuries you gather in the exact same way of strategic resources. You also gain 1 of them at a 10, and after you gain a specific amount of them, you can actually do something with them. And what do you do with them? They work in a similar way to stockpiles. And how do stockpiles work? Well, here we go. I've got a food booster. You can stockpile food as any race if you have the tech for it, which is actually the tech I'm researching right about now. As you can see, it starts in Era 2. This tech allows your cities to produce food boosters that you can stockpile for your empire, and in the times of need you can just click on a booster, so you use it in one of your cities to give it a significant bonus to in one area. For example, right now I used a food stockpile to increase my city's food. As you can see, it's going to gain a new population in a single turn, and this is going to happen no matter what, even if I move all my population away, because this booster was worth 161 food points, which is quite a lot, as you might imagine. So there are other boosters, stockpiles, that work in the same way. I got mine because I'm a necrophage and I gathered enough bodies, as simple as that. Luxury resources work in the exactly same way. If you gather enough of them, you can click on them and they'll give you some kind of benefit. For example, maybe like a happiness bonus or something of the sorts. It doesn't last forever, but it is fairly useful when you have it. Now, Empire Plan is another thing I wasn't able to discuss before, but now I am. So let's have a quick look at it. As you can see, it says next plan in 7 turns and I can simulate. What does it mean? It means that I cannot really change the plan. You can change your Empire Plan every 20 turns and you have to change it every 20 turns, no matter what. And every faction changes it at exactly the same time as well. Every player, I mean. But between the times when you can actually change your Empire's plan, you can also simulate what happens if you were able to change it right now. So when we go to simulate, as you can see, there are different things that I can go for. Influence points are very important. This is the amount of influence points I have accumulated right now Empire-wise. 33, 43, it's not a very big amount, but it's something. And I can spend those things on Empire-wide improvements. For example, I can give my Empire 20% boost to science production in every city, which is a fairly big deal. If I want to spend even more influence, assuming I would have it, then I would also gain additional happiness in cities. Then I could also spend some more for economy and population, and let's say a lot more in military. I'll need a lot of influence, as you can see, and it's fairly hard to get it, especially in a early game. But if you do have enough influence, you can seriously improve your empire. So there is a way to become a powerful empire, even if you don't have very good land, but you have good influence, which usually does not come from land. Then you can actually make up for fairly bad area where you live in, which is a very important thing, I might add. Alright, as for diplomacy, well, I wasn't able to find any area right now. I made the mistake of spawning a large world, so it's very difficult to find anybody. But it doesn't matter. As a necrophage, I would only be able to really declare war on others because necrophages cannot engage in other diplomatic negotiations with other factions, unfortunately. So the way it works is very simple. If I have enough influence, in this case it would be 65 if I'm not mistaken, I would be able to spend the 65 influence and declare war on somebody. You cannot declare war on somebody if you do not have enough influence, which is very important. It also prevents players from harassing everybody else on like 10-2, which could be fairly unrealistic, stupid and annoying, so there is that. You also use influence to, for example, boost AI's relations with you by, you know, making an official threat to them, which actually lowers your opinion. But maybe you want that. Sometimes, yeah, there's plenty of uses for influence. I'll cover that in a different video, I bet, because this videocast, as I said, is very long already and I don't want to go too far right now. And there was one more thing, and it's fairly important. As you can see, assimilated manufactures. I can actually now assimilate one, because I have pacified the Erics. When we go into my second town, as you can see that there's, out of the 3 icons that each represent one of the manufacturing villages that are in the area. As you can see, 2 of them have those little skulls. This means that I have destroyed those villages, and as such I have pacified them. There are other ways to do it. You can, for example, bribe the villages and they all become your friends, or you can do a quest for those villages, and if you succeed in those quests, they'll give you rewards and be your friends, which is the optimal way of doing things. But necrophages cannot do that. They are very warmongery, those guys. But anyway, regardless of how you pacify a minor faction, you can later assimilate it. Now, assimilating it is very important. As you can see, I can assimilate those little handsome guys. So let's do just that. And as a direct result, as you can see, what I'll do is, on my empire, my units will be faster. And they will be even faster the more pacified villages I actually have under control. Which is a very powerful trait. Indeed, this is why Erics are one of the most powerful manufacturers that you can assimilate. Also, assimilating them gives me access to a Vine Snake, which is an infantry model, which, just like in, for example, Heroes of Might and Magic, can attack all areas around it, which is incredibly powerful in a battle, trust me. So if I go into unit designs, you can see that now I have access to a Vine Snake, which I can then freely modify with various additional improvements. For example, I wanted it to wear a necklace, because why not? Maybe I think it will fancy a necklace for some reason. And that's that. Those units are very important because faction-wise you don't have access to a lot of units, but you can get extra units by assimilating minor factions, and that's how you build up your army diversity. Now keep in mind there's a limit to how many minor factions you can have. Every empire can have at most 3 assimilated minor factions, and you cannot have any more than that, so you need to pick wisely which factions you want to assimilate. You can unassimilate them per se, but you shouldn't really do that. So there is that. And anything else? Well, I suppose the last thing is a battle, which I was unable to show you until now. So let's actually grab an army. It's a fairly big-ish army for early game. And it was designed to actually attack people, but I wasn't able to do just that, so annoyingly enough. So anyway, let us assign a hero to this army if I can. I actually cannot. I have to wait one more turn. How annoying. Well, in this case, oh, actually, by the way, you shouldn't have this much movement. And those guys have a native movement of 6. But because I have assimilated the vine snakes, Orychis, or whatever they're called, I have extra half movement point, and I will gain more as I restore those villages, because right now they're burned down because I burned them down. If I repair them, then it will be better. Anyway, as for my units, I'll actually move them back into town. And the turn, so I can show you a bit of combat with my hero at my side, which is a fairly important feature. I mean, you do not need hero to fight or move around the map or anything, but let's just say that with your hero you are much more likely to succeed in anything that you do. So let's assign my hero, reassign him from a city and assign him to an army. And I think I saw, yeah, there's a vine snake. Those guys are kinda intimidating, don't they? So anyway, I can walk closer to them. And I'll probably actually have to fight 2 of them at once. Hopefully not, because this will be difficult. Nope, they are different armies. This yellow guy is a quest army. I need to kill them because that's what my quest tells me to do. I basically killed those guys home and now they're angry, coming for revenge, so I need to kill them first. So anyway, once we go into a battle, I can choose my general strategy, and I can also go for auto battle, which is surprisingly fair. Usually games are very unfair in auto battles. This game actually handles auto battles very well, and sometimes it actually sometimes makes better decisions than you normally would in auto battle. So it is commendable that it's amazing simply that auto actually works. But let's go for manual, because that's what you want to see after this very long video cast. So as you can see, the battle is now something I can enter. Oh, did I find a bug? No, it's all now working. Good. For a second I was slightly worried. So first things first, you are in the deployment phase. Now, usually you need to go for some sneaky tactics against those Orychis, because they have area of effect attack and they can annihilate your armies very easily. However, first of all, I am recording this for the purpose of demonstration, so I do not care. Secondly, those guys are flying guys. As such, they are very effective against infantry guys, and those guys are considered infantry. Very big infantry, but still infantry, so I shouldn't do too poorly. My hero, on the other hand, is in a slightly worse position, but still, he'll do alright. So let's end the deployment phase. Now you go into, I don't know how to go, targeting phase, there we go. Where you pick the targets for your units. And you give them priorities. So for example, right now this unit will do everything it can to reach this hill and then stay on this hill. Whereas the other units will actually focus on attacking those particular vine snakes. I can also make units stay on the hills, make this unit stay on this hill, for example, if I choose to do so. And as such, it will be very hard to kill. Or actually, now that I think about it, my hero is almost dead, so I'll probably do it with my hero, and this guy will just try to kill this vine snake instead, which will be difficult, trust me. But anyway, now I'm starting the battle. And for some reason my hero decided that it is impossible to reach this hill, and as such he actually decided to attack this vine snake. I'm not sure why this is, but keep in mind, alpha is alpha, and I'm sure that those units will behave a bit more smart in the future, and the animations will also look better, and in general everything will be improved. Right now you have to keep in mind, it is early alpha, so do not expect incredible wonders out of this. Suffice to say, the battle system is working right now, which is all you need to, all you can really hope for and wish for at such early stage, and it's functional. And the more it's being developed, and the devs are really focusing on battle systems, developing them as fast as they can, and the faster they are developing them, the better they get, trust me. And they were way worse before, and now they are way better. So I see a very bright future for this game, or rather this battle system. So anyway, the battle is won, wasn't very difficult. I actually lost one of my units though, but I would have lost more if not for the fact that I was able to... that the enemy vine snakes were not using their area of effect attack too much for some reason. Anyway, the battle is won, and this is basically the feeling... basically what you can expect from battles in this game. And I actually suppose this is enough, all the things I wanted, of the things that I wanted to show you, but there is one more thing. And I need to pause the recording for a moment to show you that. And this is what I wanted to show you. This is a save from several times before, as you can see on the 10 timer. This is the... how's it called? Winter time. I don't remember the official name. The Dark Age? No. Whatever, it doesn't matter. I told you its name before, somewhere, sometimes before in this videocast. Anyway, during the Dark Era, or whatever it's called, during winter, the game changes quite significantly. As you can see, this winter is not going to last for a very long time, and in early game winters last for a very short time indeed. However, as the game progresses, the winters get harsher and harsher, they last for longer and longer, and they are more and more deadly as a result. So this is a time when all of the resources that you were stockpiling in the summertime will now be used, because you will definitely need them. Especially if you are one of the more peaceful factions. Generally, the most peaceful faction is, the worse it does in wintertime. Now, unfortunately, the pop-up for the wintertime is not here after loading the game, but it doesn't matter. Basically, during winter, as you can see, my movement is severely limited. I can only move 2 tiles at most. And several other things are also influenced. For example, when we go into Fits Overlay, as you can see, no tiles produce any food whatsoever. That's because during winter there's much less food to be found on this planet, and you have a very hard time grabbing any. And that's why you really need those food stockpiles in order to keep yourself going during winter, because usually during winter you cannot actually do that. Now, some factions are doing better in winter, some are not. Some units have extra bonus side to combat or movement during winter, some units however do not, and they walk very slowly and are bad in general. Some factions ignore winter almost completely. For example, Broken Lords, they don't care about the fact that food is sparse, because they do not use food, they use dust, and dust is unaffected by winter. Necrophages are also kinda affected by winter, but not too much, because I gain a lot of food from other sources than just tiles. So yeah, that's basically the winter time in a nutshell. There's more to show you, but seriously, this videocast is way too long right now, so let's just end it right here. And wow, I actually cannot believe I'm going to finish recording. Anyway, before I end, I should point out that the description will hold all the necessary links for you to check some more things about this game. There will be a link to this game's official website, and after the game reaches Steam, I'll also edit the description and include this game's Steam page, so you can have a look at it and perhaps buy it if you feel like you're up for testing an unfinished alpha product which is not even feature complete. So yeah, there's that. Either way, I'll make more videocasts of this game. There will be more like normal playthroughs where I play on a 10x10 basis. Everything will go much faster, I assure you. Right now I feel like I had to explain everything in a tutorial fashion. I hope I didn't bore you to death, and if you made it this far, congratulations. Here's an imaginary handshake. There, that was my imaginary handshake. Thank you very much for watching. It was PANCZASU, also known as the Mighty Mega Spammer. If you somehow managed to enjoy this videocast, please do leave a comment, leave a like. Both of them help me a lot, and I really do like reading those comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you online.